Are you dying to see all the major monuments in Paris, but you want to do it like a local? Let me reassure you that it can be done. And the majority of monuments in Paris are well worth a visit. And I'll tell you which ones aren't. And believe me, because I've been here long enough to legally become French. We're going to see the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, Place de la Concorde, the Tuileries, the Louvre, Pont, Neuf, Notre Dame, the Pantheon, and the Luxembourg Gardens all in one day with plenty of bonuses sprinkled in between. And we've organized the next 24 hours to make sure we get you great food, coffee, and drinks along the way and avoid all the tourist traps, because honestly, there are parts of this tour that are going to be hard to do that. I'm Jay Swanson. This is Paris in My Pocket's guide to doing Paris in 24 hours. Why are we still standing here? Let's get started. If you know me, the first thing we're going to get is coffee, but I know you, and what you're going to want before that is a croissant. And we're here at Poilin to grab ourselves a tasty, delicious, buttery croissant.
The bakery itself is run by Apollonia Poilin, the third generation of her family to bake in the brick oven just below our feet. While they're famous for their sourdough, Poilin might be best known for feeding local workers and collaborating with artists of all kinds, including Salvador Dali, who used their bread to furnish an entire apartment. There is so much history here. It's a bakery close to the heart of the left bank in particular, so it felt like a fitting start. One additional recommendation would be to grab some punitions, these little cookies here. They're great souvenirs for friends and family at home. They also go great with tea or coffee and will easily make the trip back.
For coffee, we're headed just down the street to 10 Bells 6.
10 Bells is one of the early entrants to the specialty coffee scene here in Paris, and they will make you a proper flat white. Or, if you're like me, pour a solid cup of filter, which is what we call drip coffee here in Paris, so word to the wise.
Which brings us to our first bonus tip of the day, bonjour. It may sound silly, but the French are very formal first. It's recommended, if not downright required, to say bonjour when entering into any establishment. Whether that's a coffee shop, a boutique, your hotel, wherever it is, the first thing you need to say to anyone is bonjour. And by doing so, you'll open up an entirely different universe to your experience when you're here in Paris. Okay, hold up. If you're frantically trying to keep notes, don't worry. We put together an entire 48-hour itinerary that we will give you for free. If you scan the QR code or click the link in the description below, we will send it to you and get you started right with all the details and so much more in there, with even more bonuses, more goodies, and some of our favorite tours of the city. So pop us your email right now and we'll send it to you so you can hit the ground running and have an amazing first 2 days in Paris like a local. I have 4 more bonus tips slotted into the rest of this video, like do we tip in France and where I would recommend you stay. So be sure you stick around for all that. But for the moment, the weather's looking half decent. So let's go somewhere a little bit nicer to sit with our coffee and croissant.
Welcome to the Luxembourg Gardens. Originally built for the residence of the Regent Marie de Medici, these gardens are open to the public and one of my absolute favorites in the city. This isn't the first time that we're going to hear about a Medici today, but Marie was the mother of Louis XIII. She was quite the character too, because she refused to resign as regent until she was removed by a coup. Her name is still given to the famous fountain just off the southeastern corner of the palace. In any case, these gardens are peaceful. The palace is now home to the upper house of the French legislature, the Senate, which explains the high level of security you'll see over by the fence. You can come here during daylight hours year-round, and during warmer months, you might spot toy sailboats zipping across the pond. You can buy food here, but it's overpriced, and I'd give it a pass, obviously. Once we're done caffeinating, it's time to go visit some of France's giants. The Pantheon has quite the history. Originally built as a church, but handed back and forth between the state and church as revolutions crisscrossed modern French history, today it serves as a mausoleum to France's best and brightest, only recently opening its doors to women like Marie Curie and Josephine Baker. It is a spectacular space, housing art, sculptures, and a copy of Léon Foucault's pendulum that first proved the Earth's rotation, and also proved that his name is always so hard to pronounce. You can go down to the crypt to visit the graves of those who are interred here, which is the obvious thing to do, but my main tip is to go upstairs. For a small additional fee, you can get access to the dome itself. This not only provides you with a phenomenal panoramic view of the city, it also serves as a fun trip behind the scenes of a major monument with some great views of the interior from high up. There are a lot of Parisians that don't even know you can get up here, so be sure to take advantage and get some great photos of the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame, or even next door neighbor Saint-Étienne-du-Mont.
With all those stairs, we have worked up quite the appetite.
And it's only the first of 3 views of the city we're going to get today, so
that's all right. Once you exit the Pantheon, you're gonna wanna hang a hard right to go around the building and then take a left down the hill for the best croissant, or one of the best croissants in Paris. And yes, I did just say that, even though I don't actually subscribe to the idea of the best croissant, because especially if you don't live here, every croissant you have is probably gonna be the best croissant you've ever had. So like, let's just enjoy what we have in front of us. These are really good though. Like, very good. Now, this brings us to our second bonus tip of the day, which is money. Forget what your grandma said, we're gonna talk about money here for a second. In France, we are in the Eurozone, so we're gonna be using euros here, but you don't really need cash anywhere anymore. Cards and contactless are accepted basically everywhere, including Apple Pay, Google Pay. You can pay in cash, people appreciate it, but the way that I do it is with Wise. They're not a sponsor, but Wise is a currency exchange app that lets you swap dollars for euros, for example, a whole bunch of different currencies. You can transfer money into your account in dollars, and what's really nice about this is you don't have to convert it to euros. They'll do it on the spot every time you spend. And because their rates are super competitive and their fees are fixed, it doesn't cost you any more to just spend dollars as you go than it would to convert a huge amount of money into euros right away. This is how I spend money every day, personally and professionally, and have done for like 7 years. It honestly saves me a lot of thought and worry, and I just do it without thinking. You can grab a card from them directly or just use it on the app, and then voila, you're good to go. Anyways, there's your uncomfortable conversation about money. If you do want to set up an account with Wise, we do have an affiliate link below that you can use. I love them, but we're gonna move on now because it's time to go to the islands.
We're off to the islands, but unfortunately, Notre Dame is still out of commission, so we can't go in today. But they will be opening her back up in a few weeks. The reopening ceremony is set to take place on December 7th and 8th, and it's my favorite church in the city and the very heart of Parisian history. I used to go in at least once a week just to soak up the vibes. Even if there's a long line, they tend to go quickly, and you can easily make a visit in 15 to 20 minutes if you're crunched for time. Of course, I have no idea how long lines are gonna be when they first open the church, so prepare for a crowd. I put a fun fact on this long row of kings at the base here in the 48-hour itinerary, but there were another set of 12 statues on the original spire. The 12 disciples. Thankfully, they'd already been removed for cleaning when the fire destroyed the roof, so we still have those, and we also had a chance to see them up close at the Architecture Museum. When they were on the spire, all of them faced out across the city, except for one, who looked back at the church, as if in admiration of his own handiwork. This was St. Thomas, patron saint of architects, and cast in the style of Viollet-le-Duc, the architect who restored Notre Dame in the 19th century. In the end, a little too proud, perhaps. You could stop in and see the stained glass at Sainte-Chapelle after this, but the lines here can be bananas, and it is ticketed. So we're going to enjoy a nice stroll along the river to Pont, Neuf, which translates to the new bridge. Ironic, because it's the oldest bridge in town. If you have more time in Paris, you can go to the Carnavalet Museum in the 3rd. It's my favorite museum in Paris because it's the museum of Paris. And inside, you'll find paintings and models of the construction of Pont Neuf, which also depict how the islands used to look before they were extended or destroyed completely. Because there used to be more than 2 islands, believe it or not. And they used to put houses on bridges. It's a lot of really fun stuff in there.
All this history has got me starving, and we're in luck because there's a really good Vietnamese restaurant just over here. There's a phenomenal American barbecue deli spot just around the corner here, but I know you're here for the French food, and day one is all about French food. So let's go to La Robe et le Palais, just around the corner here, grab ourselves some good French food and some great French wine. Great food, but also the service top notch. These guys are super friendly. But while we're here, while we're eating a little bit, I've got bonus tip number 3 for you, and that is where would I recommend you stay in Paris? Because it's a really hard question to answer, and honestly, we just walked through pretty much where I would pin on a map. If you were to draw a circle around Notre Dame and get into the 4th, the 5th, or the 6th arrondissement, you're gonna have a really good time. It's very walkable, really friendly neighborhoods, quaint, cute streets. You're gonna have the full Parisian experience, but there's still great restaurants, good nightlife. And it may not be where I would prefer to stay personally, but this video is for beginners, and we will get there later because really you wanna make sure that you're familiar with the city, walking around, the transportation, you know what you're doing, and you have an idea of the neighborhoods before you commit to one and get out there a little bit too far too fast. And now we're gonna go do the biggest thing in town. Okay, I know you're gonna want to see the Louvre, but let me ask one quick question. Do you really, this place is enormous.
Literally the biggest building in France. No, it's not the Eiffel Tower, which is the tallest. It's the Louvre. I'm gonna be honest, I'm torn on the Louvre. On the one hand, I love it very much, and I always enjoy a visit. On the other, it's massive, time-consuming, and exhausting. When I say it's the biggest building in France, I am not kidding. It covers 7.3 hectares, roughly the surface area of 15 American football fields. Even the official Louvre website counsels visitors to keep it short, which is exactly what we're going to do. I know you probably have to see the Louvre, and I understand, but before you visit, Ask yourself why, and if it's a must. Do you really care that much about Italian portraiture that you have to see the Mona Lisa? Would you rather a little more time to drink wine later? It's up to you. My main recommendations in the Louvre that often go overlooked are the Sculpture Garden in the Richelieu wing, which is often much less crowded and is generally pleasant, and the foundations of the original fortress in the Sully wing. Most people don't know that what we have for the Louvre today is a shadow of its medieval glory, in my opinion. The foundations were later rediscovered and preserved, and it is an underrated gem. All right, my final counsel would be that if you're going to do the Louvre right, you'll love it all the more with a guided tour. My friend Amber in particular is a stand-up comedian and an art historian, and I guarantee you will have a better time with her than any other way. So be sure to check her out in the description below, or along with all the other tips and tricks that we stuffed into the 48-hour itinerary. Because believe it or not, it's easier to get this all on paper than it is in a video.
And then from here, we're gonna head to the Tuileries Gardens. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
I told you we'd come back to the Medicis, and this time it's Catherine, the 16th century construction queen. She built the Tuileries Palace, which closed off the Louvre's courtyards.
That used to be right here.
It's where she lived with her husband, Henry IV, and every French king since has called it home all the way through Napoleon III. It was, of course, then burned down by the famous Paris Commune and remains a ghost to this day. The Tuileries Gardens, however, remain intact and open to the public to this day. Most recently, it was home to the Olympic Cauldron, a giant balloon that would take off at night and illuminate the sky. My one piece of advice, if you want to spend some extra time here, is to get off the central path, as you'll have a bit more space to yourself, but I want to get out of here so we can show you the famous Place de la Concorde at the other end. You can see that this is the main axis of Paris, running from the Arc de Triomphe down the Champs-Élysées, through where I'm standing now in Place de la Concorde, and back through the Tuileries to the Louvre. Place de la Concorde is most famous for being one of the main staging areas for the guillotine during the French Revolution.
Can you guess? Pause the video and leave in the comments below, when was the last time somebody lost their head to Old Choppy? When do you think it was? September 10th, 1977, which basically feels like yesteryear. That's insane. You're in luck though, because capital punishment was outlawed in 1981, so you're probably safe from here. If you look to the south of Place de la Concorde, you'll see the National Assembly, and now you've completed a French civics course. If you turn to the right and look north, you'll see the Madeleine, which is a very interesting, cool, and yet slightly bizarre church that looks a little bit more like a Roman temple than a Christian place of worship. We're gonna go north, but we're not gonna go straight to there. We're actually gonna go around to the right just a little bit to find ourselves some coffee. These streets once ran with blood, now let them run with caffeine.
Noir, a coffee shop that you'll see sprouting all over the city. Kick back here for 20 minutes to enjoy a nice Madeleine in honor of our neighbor, a cookie, and a cup of tea or coffee, or if the season is hot, grab a glass of cold brew. If you're at all a coffee snob like me, you'll be grateful to see how much saturation Noir has actually reached across Paris, because coffee culture in Paris deserves a whole other video.
We could go down the street now to check out the Madeleine, but we don't have time for that today. We're gonna hop on the metro, and we're hopping on the metro because we're gonna skip the Champs-Élysées. You should not go to the Champs-Élysées. It's basically a glorified strip mall. Bonus number 4, getting around. How do you get around this city? We've geared the vast majority of this itinerary to be walkable, because Paris is wonderfully walkable as a city. And keeping that in mind, you're going to want to get your step count up before you get here, because on a day like today, we're gonna do something like 20,000 steps. Easy. So make sure you get your walking shoes broken in before you get to Paris so you can enjoy it to the fullest. That said, the public transportation system here is phenomenal, and my favorite is going to be the metro. If you need more details, we made a full YouTube video about how to use the metro, which you can find in the description below or wherever it popped out here. But for the moment, the two things that I'm gonna tell you to get right now on your phone are gonna be City Mapper. It's an app that we all use here. It's like the local app. We don't really use Google Maps so much because it does tend to be really up to date with delays, and also will let you know where on the train to be to make your transfer or get to the closest exit as fast as possible. The other would be the EDF Mobilités app, and in English you'd say IDF Mobilities. It's a local transportation app that can give you directions around, but what you really want to use it for is to put tickets on your phone before you travel, on both Android and your iPhone. So you can just use your phone to get in and out of the metro, which is a really nice treat. What we're gonna do right now is hop on Metro Line 1 and skip the Champs-Élysées entirely, partially because it's basically just a glorified strip mall and nobody should spend any time on it. We as Parisians avoid it like the plague. Unless you're looking for a little bit of McDonald's or Five Guys, in which case have at it. The other reason is because it is a long walk, and between here and there is not a lot to see. From Noir, where we just were, to the Arc de Triomphe is gonna be something like 30-35 minutes walking. We don't have time for that, nor can our legs handle it.
We've made it to the crown jewel of the Champs-Élysées, which, isn't saying much, but it is a glorious structure. To get to the Arc de Triomphe, go under the roundabout. Do not walk through traffic like John Wick. And if you do see John Wick, turn around and skip this part. Barring Hitman Catastrophe, buy your tickets for this in advance. You should be buying your tickets in advance for everything. We have links below, but doing so here means you can skip the ticket office line and get straight into the entrance line. After a quick security check, you'll head up the 284 stairs to one of my favorite views of the city. You'll spot Montmartre, La Défense. You can look all the way back down where you came from towards the Louvre, and of course you'll see our final destination, the Eiffel Tower. What might surprise you, besides learning that they weren't allowed to complete the Arc before Napoleon died, is that there's a gift shop inside it. There's also a live video feed in the floor by the bathrooms, so you can see straight down to the flame of the unknown soldier below. Not only are there bathrooms available, but if you have accessibility issues, you can use an elevator to get all the way up. Just make sure to ask security. We do have a much bigger elevator right ahead though, so first, Apéro. What's an Apéro?
Apéro is what we call pre-dinner drinks in France. It's something that we do to make sure that we loosen up a little bit before the main event, but also it's our favorite time of day. It's a great excuse just to sit around with friends, catch up at the end of a long day, relax, détendre, you know? We're here to let loose a little bit. And it's also the perfect excuse to come to a place like this, because this is not the kind of place that I would normally recommend. However, for Apéro, the point is not to have the best beer or the best wine. It's just to have a nice cold glass of something with your friends and enjoy the environment. And two things here. One, we have the Arc de Triomphe. This is actually a pretty nice view of it from here. That's one bonus. And two, people watching is the #1 spectator sport in Paris. If you've ever noticed on cafe terraces like this, all the chairs are set to face out, even if there are multiple rows of tables. It's specifically so that we can look out at the world and judge as they go by. I didn't mean to pick on her. She just happened to walk by as a But that also brings us to the question of tipping. Do you tip in France? The answer is both no and yes. No, traditionally, you don't really tip in France, not the same way that you would do in somewhere like the States. It's not a percentage. You don't have to give like a kidney or a lung, whatever it's up to now in the US. It's pretty insane. What is nice here for genuinely good service is to leave 1 or 2 euros behind as a pourboire, which literally means for a drink. You're pitching in for their drink that night or their next apéro. It's a really nice thing to do. That said, you will see on credit card machines now a little bit of a percentage thing that gets added in, which is programmed in and is not culturally, it's okay to tip. And if you want to leave a larger percentage, you want to be generous, no one's going to be offended, go for it. It's one of those things that's steadily redeeming the American tourist image around the world. Generous tipping, not a bad way to go.
Let's head to dinner. We're gonna hop back on the metro and head to one of my favorite restaurants in the city for some classic French food with an international twist. Milagro was opened by my friend Justin after years of massive challenges, and they've done so well that they've even made it into the Michelin Guide, who are the same people that hand out Michelin stars. Their menu also changes seasonally, which makes it doubly worth return visits, and it's one of the few restaurants that I've tried that I actually like within a stone's throw of the Eiffel Tower. Their wine selection is amazing, the environment is warm and friendly, and the staff always make it feel like home. Assuming you're having a dinner party at home, of course. Now, I can understand wanting to stay here all night, but if you do want to get out, we have one final major stop on our route. We've saved the best for last, the Eiffel Tower. Technically, the sparkles are copyrighted, so I'm not going to use any of that footage here. A fun yet stupid fact about French copyright law is that you can copyright architectural designs, which means that there are hundreds of buildings in Paris that technically it's illegal to photograph for profit without licensing the rights. Fair enough. The Eiffel Tower itself is well out of copyright, which is why you can see those designs everywhere. But the lights and the sparkles were created in the 80s and are still out of reach for we humble content creators. That said, it is always worth a visit. Whether you want to sit on the Champ de Mars, the big grassy lawn in front of it, and stare up at it for hours, or you want to go all the way to the top, you can't go wrong. Going up can take some time depending on how busy it is, but it provides fantastic views of the city and is really a special experience. You'll be climbing what was once the tallest building in the world, one that has seen world wars and world's fairs. It's the unmistakable symbol of Paris and a silhouette, I believe, that sparks joy in hearts the world over. Locals hardly go up it, but they really should from time to time.
So there goes your first day in Paris. What are you gonna do with your second? You're in luck. Scan the QR code right here or click the link in the description below and we will send you our full 48-hour free itinerary straight to your email. It's gonna load you up on Sacré-Cœur, Montmartre, the Marais, Pigalle. Have you ever even heard of Pigalle? You're gonna have a phenomenal time. I'm Jay Swanson, thanks for watching and have a great time doing Paris like a local.